Welcome back to this week's episode of the Goonery. Myself here alongside Brandon. As usual, this week's going to be back to the basics with us. We're going to be discussing our baseball teams, and I think in both of our cases, the disappointment that has come with them this season. Going to move into a little bit of NBA Finals talks with the Celtics and the Warriors, and then wrap up a little Madden cover discussion. But Brandon, obviously, both of our teams this year, me, the White Sox fan, you a Cardinals fan, things have not gone according to plan. Would you tend to agree with that statement?
If I think if the Cardinals had lost against the Padres today, I probably would have joined in that disappointment. But I must be honest, the Mets series that passed early in this month, we split. Actually, no, we did split. We lost 3-1. And I thought from there, the way the series was lost, Pete Alonso hitting the walk-off home run, but we had the lead in the 11th, I believe, or 10th, whichever one it was.
Mm-hmm.
I thought there was going to be one of those times where everything was just going to fall down. And then there's also that disturbing trend of the Cardinals that I have known them to have, especially against good teams, to not finish them off. And what I mean by that is, we swept the Pirates, and then the Blue Jays split, the Brewers split, and then the Padres come into town. Padres were a team last year that we used as a stepping stone in terms of our long win streak, and we swept them. And it kind of basically just eliminated the Padres from the playoffs entirely. And then they come in here, and we sweep them. And that's one thing that, honestly, it's not to say the Cardinals are a bad team, but they're a team that you still have wonders about. You don't know if they are going to be a legitimate contender. You know they're going to be the second best team in NL Central because NL Central was god-awful this year. It's only the Brewers and the Cardinals. But one thing that I saw in terms of the past 2 weeks was that the Cardinals can stick with the Brewers. And regardless of how good the pitching is, the Cardinals have this thing where they can muster up enough offense to win. And if we want to talk about offense,
can I just make a statement?
Go ahead.
I think I know who you're going towards. Paul Goldschmidt is on his way to an MVP. And I mean, he's insane. Who were they playing when he hit the walk-off grand slam?
Blue Jays.
Yeah, the Blue Jays. I mean, he was 0-2. He's down 0-2 on the count. And I think he was 0 for at that point in that game, if I remember correctly from the highlights, and just pissed on a ball. I mean, he's hit safely in I don't know how many games, gotten on base and God knows how many games, but he's hitting over 350, and he's a joy to watch, and I'm happy that it's taken this long. People have always known he was good when he was in Arizona, but right now, with how he's playing down in St. Louis, as crazy as it sounds, St. Louis being on a national scale, but people are finally taking notice of Paul Goldschmidt, and when he goes into Cooperstown, if this rate continues, he's going to be doing it wearing the Cardinals hat.
Absolutely. And, we have Nolan Arenado, who had a really, really tough month of May. Tyler O'Neill, I mean, you want to talk about a guy that I thought was going to be an MVP candidate this year. He's on the injured list right now, and he did not perform leading up to that. And they have all the turnover on the roster with, Albert Pujols coming back. You have Juan Yepes coming up from AAA. You got Brendan Donovan, who's been that Swiss Army knife type of player that we've had. And we finally brought up our top prospect, Nolan Gorman. And let me tell you something.
Eye-popping stats so far.
Let me tell you something. The home runs he hits, he doesn't get cheated. He hits just absolute moonshots. And you know something? I agree with the term that you don't want everybody to get hot at the same time because everybody's going to get cold at the same time. But you have a good crop of players that if they get hot, it's going to be really, really some special stuff. And the thing is, I didn't even bring up how Harrison Bader is a winning player, regardless of him not hitting all that well. Tommy Edman is an on-base machine, and he had a very crucial stolen base yesterday to lead to Albert Pujols' walk-off. The team is well built. The only thing I'm concerned about is this pitching. Flaherty needs to get back healthy. Waino, he was amazing.
I know Waino's. It's insane what he's able to do. What is he, 41 or 42? It's
41.
it blows my mind what he's able to do at this point. The fact that his arm hasn't fallen off at this point with how consistently he's thrown 200 plus innings throughout his career. And it's just, I mean, it's insane. He's got what? A sub 3 ERA at this point this year, I think.
I'm
And
gonna say it's a little below 2 now.
it's yeah, it's incredible. Like,
Below 3, excuse me.
yeah, I mean, but regardless, incredible. You just have to wonder though, with his age, is that going to stick out? Is that going to carry out throughout the year? Flaherty obviously still isn't back, and then but who you got behind him? Is it Mike McCullough? If I
Yeah, he had a rough start against Milwaukee, but other than that, he's been money all season.
yeah, it's interesting because I think that you're who is it in your bullpen? Halsey. I know
Housley, gas.
yeah, because I know
Gas.
he hasn't thrown a ton of innings this year, but correct me if I'm wrong. Was he originally a starter?
No, he was always a reliever. He just never threw this hard. I don't know where this came from.
Okay, then I don't know who I'm mixing it up with in your bullpen.
Jordan Hicks, who you thinking
Okay,
of?
okay, yeah. But Halsey in the limited action he's seen this year, I was just like, holy shit.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a blessing because our original closer Giovanni Gallegos, who I was a big fan of when he got traded to the Cardinals for Luke Voigt, he's fell off this year, and that's really troubling considering he was one of our rocks in that bullpen. Because outside of that, there's Cody Whitley, there's Drew Verhagen, there's Nick Whitgren. A lot of guys that you're not gonna really notice,
They're guys.
They're guys.
Is for lack of a better term, they're guys who are there to. They're the guys who revolve through the bullpen every 2 to 3 years. You'll remember them if someone brings up the name, but off the top of your head, if you're thinking of 2022 Arizona Cardinal relievers in 5 years, they're not going to be who you think of.
Exactly. So right now, I feel somewhat good about the team. I think I want to temper my expectations. We are going into Wrigley, and I know the Cubs are not that very good of a team, but they always will play the Cardinals hard. Yeah. So you can never ever take that for granted. But 29-21 is something to not be upset about. And I think as a fan, the Cardinal fans will always find something to complain about. But the fact of the matter is they have a winning ball club on the field right now, and that's really all that matters.
Yeah, and as well as the Brewers are playing, the Cardinals are still only 2.5 games back. And I'm in a position as a White Sox fan where if you would have told me the Sox were 29-21 right now, I wouldn't have been happy. So you can imagine how I feel with them being 1 game under 500 right now, 23-24. Beginning of a road trip, which includes they're playing in Toronto right now, down to Kopech had his worst outing of the year tonight, and then they go on down to Tampa, and then they have the Dodgers at home for 3. So that's right on the heels of Tim Anderson hitting the IL. Eloy Jimenez is still not back. Yohan Moncada has not played in, I think, 4 days now, and it's not started in 4 days and probably should be on the IL at this point, but roster depth isn't there. Lance Lynn still isn't back. Luis Robert was just activated off the COVID list. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on with this team. And they're averaging below 4 runs a game this year as an offense, with an offense that features Tim Anderson at full strength, I should say, at full strength, with Tim Anderson, Yohan Moncada, Abreu, Robert, Yasmani Grandal, Eloy Jimenez, and then Andrew Vaughn, who I've been a big Andrew Vaughn fan since the Sox have drafted him. Everyone complained that he was an undersized first baseman. And then Eloy Jimenez just has to try and rob a home run in spring training last year, rush along his development, and he plays a competent left field at this point, enough to the point where they're throwing him in right field. And aside from Tim Anderson, he's been the most consistent hitter on the White Sox this year. And if that's something you would have told me 2 months ago, I would say, wow, that's incredible. That must mean Vaughn's hitting about 315. And he's still hitting in the 290s, but you're not expecting. Jose Abreu is currently tied with Andrew Vaughn for the team leading home runs with 6. It is June 1st. And they are playing in one of the most hitter-friendly ballparks in all of baseball. I tweeted this the other night with the White Sox. I liken it to an Irish Catholic marriage at this point. I turn on the TV to watch them when I'm able to every night. it's a loveless relationship at this point. You don't want to tune in, but you keep doing it because you're holding out hope that something might change. Then you remember a 76-year-old senile alcoholic Tony La Russa is your manager, can't manage a bullpen. Do you want to hear my favorite stat about the 2022 Chicago White Sox, Brandon?
Sure.
This is game 48 tonight. They have had 48 lineups start in 48 games. 48 unique lineups in 48 games.
Sounds very Yankee-like.
But my thing is, like, I understand there's injuries and you can't get around that. I mean, it's a training staff issue at this point. They changed the training staff. I don't know what's going on, but your guys aren't going to get into any type of consistency with that because the pitching this year, the bullpen has been a little bit shaky, but there's enough guys in that bullpen between Liam Hendricks, Kendall Graveman, Joe Kelly. I mean, Joe Kelly, I didn't even mention him in the injuries. He's been on the IL twice now this year. Aaron Bummer, and they've seen guys like Matt Foster have a little bit of a revival. And the bullpen has been shaky, but more often than not, they've been fine. And they have enough talent in there where they're going to figure it out, I think, and they have been starting to figure it out. The rotation's been good. And that's been without Lance Lynn. That's been with Lucas Giolito going on the COVID list. That's been with Kopech having a slow start due to just an innings restriction, getting his arm ramped up. And that included having Dallas Keuchel making starts, who was finally DFA'd, which I don't know if I can describe to you how happy that made me feel. Has there been a player like that on the Cardinals for you and your fandom?
Oh man. I remember Ty Wigginton being on the team and just doing absolutely nothing. I feel like there's Justin Masterson, Jake Westbrook.
Yeah.
There's a good amount of guys. Let me tell you.
And I like with the Sox, I don't want to be hitting the panic button yet because it's June. It's a long season. And the offense, seemingly the last few games, has been starting to turn it on a little bit. Jose Abreu's starting to piss on the ball again. I'm still afraid about Yasmani Grandal, who just seemingly lost at the plate, hitting, I think, like 154 right now or something like that. Yohan Moncada, since coming back, has just been horrible. But I don't even know. Like, the Twins are starting to lose at least. The AL Central is still a very, very, very winnable division. It's just a matter of if these guys can put it together. And that's crazy to say because if you were to look at this White Sox rebuild 2 years ago, as a fan, you were excited for the future. You said Rick Hahn was making all the right moves. They made the right move in going out and getting Grandal. They made the right move in going out and getting Keuchel at the time, who was great in 2020 in the COVID short in 2020. Then the last 2 years was just arguably the worst starting pitcher in all of baseball. And I mean, obviously you're not going to DFA Grandal because that bat is going to turn around. He started out very slow last year, still ended up having an OPS up near 1,000, where he was hitting sub 100 for about a month and a half. So, I mean, the start last year was worse than this year. There's no doubt about it. But how much of a leash can you keep giving these guys until the Sox have to go out and make a move and screw and deplete what there is little left of their farm system? Because in my opinion, if the Sox get to a 5-game series, a 7-game series in the playoffs, they have the rotation to where they can shut down a lineup time like any day of the week. When Dylan Cease is on, he is as nasty as any pitcher in baseball. I don't know if you caught any of his starts. I mean, his start against the Red Sox last Tuesday was brutal. Don't get me wrong. I was in attendance for it, and that was about as bad as I've seen him ever throw. But when he's on, he's on. And the White Sox need to take advantage of that while you can, because guess what? He's going to be getting paid way more money than Jerry Reinsdorf and the White Sox will ever give him. So, and that's the sad reality of being a Sox fan. You see all these guys who develop into stars and they just leave because they'll never get paid. There's still never been $100 million contract in White Sox history.
That's troubling. But Ben, I want to ask you something, and because I'm getting the vibes of this, and you would know this, and I just want your opinion. But doesn't this 2022 White Sox team really like remind you of the 2019 Chicago Bears?
I knew that's exactly where you're going with that because I have said that to my friends and we've all agreed on it. Just because you have talent that is just being just taken back and pulled back by the coaching staff.
Yep.
I don't know if you saw what happened in the Sox game last night. They ended up losing by 1 to the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
And Danny Mendick, who has been our quadruple A shortstop the last 2-3 years, plays a good shortstop. He's a fine hitter off the bench. Obviously, he's not a big leaguer as he's gone back and forth between our AAA team, Charlotte, God knows how many times. But there was one out. Yasmani Grandal hit a deep fly ball to left field, runners on first and third. And this is when the Sox were, I believe, they were still down 1 at this point. And they had a good inning. They scored a few runs. Yasmani hits that deep fly ball. Reese McGuire, the backup catcher, tags up from third, and he starts to slow down because there's no throw to home plate. Danny Mendick, Tim Anderson's replacement, tagged from first base without the first base coach sending him, and Reese McGuire did not score. So the Sox lost by 1 because of something like that. I'm doubled up on what was an easy sacrifice fly deep to the left field to the warning track. And you can either blame it on Reese McGuire not fully sprinting, which, I mean, you shouldn't have to at that point. As dumb as that sounds, you can pull up when you see there's no throw coming and just assume that Danny Mendick isn't going to be tagging up from first base on a fly ball to left field. Then again, as Danny Mendick, you just have to have the awareness. If you see that coming back to you, run back towards first base and just try and stall as long as you can for McGuire to cross the plate, because it was legitimately like snap of a finger difference of McGuire crossing the plate and Mendick getting tagged out at second. And that play was just the embodiment of White Sox baseball this year. And honestly, White Sox baseball during Tony La Russa's second stint as the manager, just dumb mistakes beating themselves. Because, like I said, these next 8 games, if you include tonight, you have 1 more with the Blue Jays, 3 with the Rays on the road in the Trop, and then 3 at home with the Dodgers. The Sox are going to be lucky to win 3 games during this set with how hurt they are right now. And I don't know what to say. So
Honestly, it feels like we're in different spots where I'm familiar with what you're going through, only because it always feels like the Cardinals historically would get up to like slow starts, a little bit of April, most of May, a lot of June. And then when July comes around, you're just like, okay, they're kind of falling out the race. And they need to start winning games. And I'm afraid that the White Sox are going to start losing ground. It's only going to be in June. And here's the thing. The White Sox, I said unanimously they're going to win the Central. I thought the Tigers were going to be better. I thought the Twins were going to be okay. But I said there's no way in the world the White Sox will lose the Central. But this is what happens when teams get content. They said, oh, we think we hit our ceiling. Now we have to break that ceiling to get to another ceiling. In baseball, that's not how it works. You look at the teams that have been to the World Series over the past couple of years. And you know, one team that's been one of the main repeaters to go back, that would be the team that's on my hat right now, the Astros. They will always make sure that they retool and make sure they fill the holes that they need to. And guess what? They may not won every World Series, but when they did win, I don't care about the whole cheating thing or whatever. They got the job done regardless.
Yep.
So this is why I feel like teams like the Yankees, the Red Sox, Dodgers, this stuff like this is going to pay off in the end. If you retool and try to get better, even though you are maybe 2-3 games away from making the World Series, that's going to make a difference in those 2 to 3 games. So you always have to retool. The White Sox offseason is a reflection of what they're doing on the field right now.
Yeah, and you mentioned the retooling. Rick Hahn, the White Sox GM, for those of you who don't know who that is, said in his end of year, heading into the offseason presser last year, that this team has every intention of winning a World Series next year. You know, when you have every intention of winning a World Series next year. You think you'll go out and, go get a front end free agent. I mean, they had a glaring need at second base. Second baseman this year included the likes of Trevor Story, Marcus Semien. Obviously, Simeon's been playing horrible this year, but he's starting to turn it on these last few weeks. I mean, those two are the big ones. And who did they sign? They signed Josh Harrison, a 4-year-old washed one-time all-star. It's just a classic White Sox move. Then, you have a top of the rotation starter in Carlos Rodon, who the Sox don't even tender. And like if they would have just extended the qualifying offer, they would have gotten draft pick out of it if he still signed with San Francisco. I have a really hard time believing that 1 year, $18 million for Carlos Rodon right now is not worth the same as Vince Velasquez, who they signed for, I think, $5 million, and then eating the rest of Keuchel's contract, thinking that would be enough. Then ultimately signing Johnny Cueto to come in at the back end of the rotation, another right-hander. And then just to tie off the rest of the offseason, they gave $24 million to Kendall Graveman. They gave, I think it was $18 million 2 years to Joe Kelly, who has hardly played. And it's just a disaster. I mean, yeah, they traded Craig Kimbrell, which thank God get him out of there. I was fine with that. Deleury Garcia re-signing was whatever, in my opinion, too. But it's just like you can't expect to win a World Series with Josh Harrison as your second base, and then your corner outfielders consisting of A.J. Pollock, Andrew Vaughn, and Gavin Sheets, who are two first basemen. Two of those three players are first basemen playing your corner outfield every day. It's frustrating. I've come to accept it at this point. But if things don't turn around within the next, I will say, I'll give it till the end of June. If they are not a few games above 500 by the end of June, I am more likely than not hitting the cancel button on the season. And I'll tell you, I would have never seen that coming, considering the Sox were, I think, minus 350 to win the division opening day. So for those of you who don't bet, that you have to place $350 to win $100 on the White Sox to win the division, which that's 162 games you're betting on, $350 to win 100. It blows my mind. And as bad as it sounds, I post a question. I'm in a White Sox group chat. I go, guys, what do we think happens first? Tony La Russa is fired or Tony La Russa passes away? And the unanimous answer was Tony La Russa will have to die or resign before he is fired. And it's a horrible thing to joke about, but it's the truth because it's the Chicago White Sox, man.
And you know what? This is a lesson that I think a lot of Chicago fans actually really do go through, because let's go down the list. The Chicago Cubs, they won the World Series in 2016, and I kid you not, you cannot convince one person, a fan, a person part of the media, you couldn't convince them that they weren't going to win the next two World Championships.
I as a White Sox fan, I thought anything less than 2 World Series for that team was a failure.
And guess what? It was a failure. But anyways.
I agree. And all my majority of my Cub fan friends will agree with me in that statement, which is something that I think they wouldn't have agreed with me until Rizzo and Chris Bryant and Javi Baez were all traded, because then they were like, holy shit, this is the end.
Yeah. And then Chicago, 2018, the highs. And literally the writing should have been on the wall once Parkey missed the kick. That should have been the writing. Like it was over from there. Chicago, when they had Derrick Rose as the MVP, and you thought maybe, just maybe, I know they lost to Miami that 1 year, but maybe if they make it back, because they were the 1 seed when they went to the first round of playoffs, Derrick Rose blows his ACL, they lose to the 76ers. And then nothing was the same after that.
I mean, like, the fact that I look back on my childhood, and I mean, the Sox were 5 when I was 5 years old when the White Sox won a World Series, and I was also 5 years old when the Bears were in a Super Bowl. So my childhood memories consisted of really below average White Sox teams, not good Chicago Bears teams for the most part, and the excitement of the Chicago Bulls that was Derrick Rose, Luol Deng, Joakim Noah, Carlos Boozer, Rip Hamilton, Taj Gibson, and just tuning in Jimmy Butler for a while, and Tom Thibodeau just like making all these guys play 40 minutes a game, but you didn't care because you're like, oh my God, they're fun. And my dad had not watched basketball since Jordan left the Bulls, but you better believe my dad was sitting down watching those Bulls games with me every night because he just couldn't believe what Derrick Rose was doing. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, one of my favorite things to do to this point is still go back and just look up Stacey King's best calls Derrick Rose on YouTube. And it's horrible, but like I would say 80% of my friends can recite most of those calls word for word because they were just that memorable. And that team was that memorable. And then it just ends in disappointment, like all things that comes with being a Chicago sports fan. So, yeah.
Rough.
Yeah. So, moving on to a little more of a neutral setting here. We have an NBA Finals of the Boston Celtics and the Golden State Warriors. And my pick at the start of the playoffs, I had picked the Warriors to be facing the 76ers. And obviously I was not correct in that. I don't know what your predictions were, but this Celtics team, man, they suffocate you.
And it's one of those series that you just, I think clearly the Warriors are a better team.
Mm-hmm.
But, and the one thing, because by the way, I'm going to get this out the way. My pick is the Warriors. I'm going to pick them at 6. But one thing that does give me pause for the Celtics is, don't get me wrong, Jason Tatum is amazing. I mean, this guy is going to be an absolute bona fide superstar.
Before we go any further on Jason Tatum, I already think he is a bona fide superstar in my opinion. I think he's a top 10 player in the league. But I don't know about you, but I thought that like that I saw on Twitter that Jason Tatum had texted Kobe's old number before the game, game 7. I thought that was really, really, really weird, man. I don't know about you.
I see. I've been going back and forth with this because, like, obviously, like, I have a deep
that's why I wanted to. That's why I wanted to ask you.
Right, and I do think it was more for the theatrics of the game 7 feeling and saying,
sure,
"This is for you." I'm not mad at him, and listen.
No, I'm not mad at him either. I'm not mad. I'm just more like, dude, like that's a weird move. That's my stance on it.
I understand. And the only reason why I'm going to give Tatum a break, I mean, Kobe and Tatum were like this, so it would be kind of like rude for me to say, like, dude, why are you texting a dead person's number and stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure.
And like, I get it. I get it. And, you know, I think people should lay off of him. But back to my point, the Celtics are a team that if they're hitting, they will beat you because their defense is so suffocating. Their defensive sets is amazing, and they have just a whole bunch of long athletes on their team that you'll get frustrated.
Yep.
But then let's go over to the Warriors side. And not for nothing, let's keep it a buck here. The Warriors are what a championship team will look like in the year 2022. Mm-hmm. A team that can shoot the freaking lights out. But it always these matchups that's so interesting to me where great offense meets a great defense. And the real key to every one of these series is how well is one team going to shoot the ball. And the perfect example is this. And this may not be the best example considering a main piece was out and stayed out throughout the series. Mm-hmm. But I go back to Toronto and Golden State that one year. And a lot of people thought even without Kevin Durant for most of the series that Golden State was going to just pummel Toronto. Mm-hmm. And then Toronto said, you know what? Our defense is going to win this series. Obviously, Kawhi Leonard showed up. Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, they all showed up. But defensively is where they all showed up. And that was the main difference in the series. So I'll go back to this. With a full strength Warriors team, they don't have Kevin Durant, but they do have Steph Curry. They do have Klay Thompson. Draymond Green is a guy who's not going to score you points, but he's still going to do a lot of things. Andrew Wiggins has killed the bus talk around him. Absolutely obliterated it.
All-star Andrew Wiggins.
And all-star Andrew Wiggins. And I was one of those people that said, why is he on the all-star team? Why is he starting on the all-star team? He proved me wrong. And Jordan Poole, Jonathan Kuminga, Kevon Looney, they're loaded. They are absolutely loaded. And I do think the experience is going to take over in this series. And by the way, before you go, I'm not going to buy all this talk about Steph Curry. Is he worried about his legacy, about getting the finals MVP? I have to say, this has been on my mind for just ever since the Warriors won the West Conference. Ring culture is what is so debilitating for this sport. The thought of a guy in Steph Curry who, if anybody will sit there and tell you he did not change the league, is a bona fide hater. And you can see in the inspiration for every position on the basketball court of everybody trying to shoot threes. And and the funny thing is, I remember, and this is funny, I hate to bring this up because I know you're a Bulls fan, but when Denzel Valentine pulled up for that damn three-pointer that one time, they say he was shooting from Curry range. Yep. They don't say that for every other player. So let's keep that in mind. But if people want to predicate Curry's legacy on winning a finals MVP, you are focused on the wrong things. And this is the conversation that we had not too long ago about how basketball fans are so toxic in the respect that if you even compare one guy to one of your favorites or a guy who's widely considered the GOAT, they're going to pinpoint every single thing that was wrong in their career. But that is also the issue, because when Steph Curry retires, I'm going to tell y'all now, we are not going to see another one of him. I don't care how many people can shoot threes in this game today. I really don't care, because they don't shoot like him. They don't make it look as effortless as him. They don't make it look as smooth as him. So I genuinely do not care if Steph Curry wins his finals MVP. You want to know why? Because this will be the fourth NBA finals winning team he will be a part of. And if y'all think that's by accident, I feel really, really bad for y'all. You're most likely the most miserable person to talk sports with, and I never want to talk sports with you.
I'll be completely honest with you. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. If we just want to talk Steph Curry's legacy, I think depending on how much longer he plays and at the level he plays at, I wouldn't be surprised to see him consistently on NBA Mount Rushmores with the impact that he has had on basketball. And despite all of that, I think the Celtics are going to win this NBA Finals. And leading into that, my favorite bet of the series is Marcus Smart to win the MVP at plus 4,000. And that is because I think if the Celtics are going to win this series, I think this is going 6 or 7 games regardless of who ends up winning it. My pick right now would just be the Celtics. But if they're going to win this series, Marcus Smart is going to have to neutralize Steph Curry. And by neutralize, it's keep him to less than 30.
Right.
And if they do that, Tatum's going to have to play his balls off. Jaylen Brown's going to have to play his balls off. But on just pure value alone, at that plus 4,000 number, I will be throwing a few dollars on that, just for shits and giggles more than anything. And I think you hit the analysis on this better than I could have at this point. But it's going to be a really fun series. It's probably going to be one of the better finals in the last few years, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm genuinely excited. I've kind of zoned out of the NBA playoffs a little bit, just based on the Bulls just getting run through. And then, I mean, I've watched, but I had, we'll see. I'm looking forward to it though. I mean, game 1 tomorrow or today, if you're listening, but it's it's going to be a good series, and I think it's good for the NBA that it's different too. I mean, people are going to complain that the Warriors are in it again, but when was the last time the Warriors were in the finals? Was it 3 years ago at this point?
Yeah, 29 was
Yeah, I
2019.
mean, like at that point, and then the Celtics obviously haven't been in the finals since 2010.
10.
Yeah, I was going to say 2009, but yeah, I mean, it's a fresh matchup. I mean, and you can never be upset about a fresh matchup, in my opinion.
And that's the thing too. The only people that's going to complain about it are those who genuinely just don't like basketball. They like players,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna say LeBron's not in here. I don't have a rooting interest. Oh, the Warriors have been dominant, so I'm just going to hate them and just hope that both teams lose the NBA Finals. Listen, if you want to have a rooting interest, or lack thereof, against both teams, go right ahead. I totally get it. If like there's gonna be a lot of people who hate the Warriors and Celtics for reasons. I hate the Celtics, and that's not the reason why I'm picking them to lose. I just think the Warriors are the better team. But you're not gonna find many people like me because they're gonna root with their heart. They're gonna root for the hate in their heart instead of what they're thinking in their mind.
Yep.
And honestly, that's the rooting interest of the NBA. You don't see this in every other sport. You really don't. I mean, granted, you have the same like crop of fans that say the same things on the timeline, but for NBA is just different. It literally is just different. I don't get why it is. Maybe it's because it's more of an individual sport, so they can gravitate toward the players more. But at the same time, it's that type of thinking that ruins the game. It ruins it for people like me who once loved basketball,
Yep.
but now I have to like deal with all of the politicking and the agendas on the timeline just so people can convince me to hate a certain player. It's ridiculous.
I mean, you talk about how toxic the NBA is online. I off the top of my head, I don't think I have any other words for any other sport muted except for some players' names in the NBA, some phrases that are constantly thrown around on Twitter. Like it's just you can't engage with people because if you do, you're gonna end up having 20 people with I don't know, we'll go with whatever, Damian Lillard profile pictures coming at you saying like just spewing ratio, L plus ratio, and just it's you can't do it. And I just want to be able to enjoy basketball, plain and simple.
That's it.
And it makes it very hard to, but I think we're both going to enjoy this series, and that's a good thing.
Yep.
So to wrap up the show, we just wanted to touch on one more thing. We had talked about this however many months ago when John Madden had passed away, but EA Sports announced today that Madden 2023 will have John Madden on the cover for the first time since I believe 2000 it was, and they're calling it the Legacy Edition, obviously. And I'm very happy about this. I know you were too. We were texting back and forth a little bit about it because whatever player would have ended up on the cover this year if they didn't go with John Madden would have gotten so much unnecessary hate and backlash for something out of their control. Because if you're being offered the Madden cover spot, you're not going to say no. And if someone tells you that you would say no, you're lying, unless you're the likes of Tom Brady, who eventually came around to it for the GOAT edition, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, any of those type of caliber guys, you can understand them saying no, but they were going to put someone fresh and new on there. And in my opinion, probably would have been Josh Allen. I don't know how you feel about that. I just think that that's like logical. They're not going to go back to the well with Mahomes. Lamar Jackson was obviously banged up last year. He's someone who I think will eventually be on a Madden cover. Derrick Henry got hurt, so it wouldn't have been him. I really don't know who would have been. Maybe Joe Burrow. I could see it being Joe Burrow now that I say that, now that I'm thinking about it. But a bunch of guys we're naming that are, I think, in my opinion, pretty universally liked. And EA Sports would have ended up screwing them.
I have not been a fan of Madden over the past couple of years. I'm a new gen player now, and I played the new version, and I do think I like the vision of what Madden is doing, but I'm just asking EA for one thing and one thing only. With this particular Madden, this is the first one post John Madden. Let's per se. I need this game to be great. You cannot have the same product with the cover that you're going to bring out. And I'm going to trust it this year. I'm actually going to buy Madden.
Oh, I'm gonna buy it. I will buy it this year too for the first time. I think since Antonio Brown was on the cover. I think is that 2019. I think
I think
18,
so.
19.
I'm not good. I'm not good with the years past
Yeah,
like 2010. But
yeah.
but this game needs to be great. And I think one of the most interesting things is a lot of people tend to forget that, the Madden curse was so much a thing like in the early 2000s.
Mhm.
Just ask Michael Vick, just ask Ray Lewis, just ask Sean Alexander, just ask Vince Young, just ask matter of fact, you can ask Vince, you ask Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady this year.
Yeah.
And a lot of people forget that they were on the cover and it was like, oh my God, they lost in the playoffs. No way. Well, yeah, they did. I mean, let's be honest. But
I mean, hey, you can even go as far back as Peyton Hillis. Talk about the worst player to ever be on a Madden cover.
and you know what?
I mean, he had an insane year. He
He
did.
did.
Genuinely, he had a crazy year, but I mean, you can't put that type of guy on a Madden cover. But
You
now that I think about it, wasn't that a fan vote that year?
It was a fan vote between him and Michael Vick, and for obvious reasons, people are not going to pick Michael Vick again.
Yeah.
I get it. I voted for Michael Vick, but I get
I
it.
honestly probably did too. I don't remember, but I probably because that was when he was back on the Eagles, correct? I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean he was
And
as
he was
fun as
so
he was as
well
fun.
deserving of it.
Oh, I mean he was as fun as any NFL player I feel like I've watched in those couple of years when he earned the starting job in Philadelphia. It was insane watching him with that revival.
That whole Eagles team was ridiculous. And
Yeah,
if it
the
wasn't,
dream team.
yeah, exactly. Well, not that one.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, if it wasn't for the Packers double magic in 2010, 2011, then we would have gotten the Super Bowl of the Eagles, because the Bears wasn't going to make it. I don't care what anyone
Yeah.
says. The Bears wasn't going to make it. Even though we were the number one seed that year, but we wasn't going to make it. But we were robbed that year. But I'll go back to the main point. It's going to be interesting, just like going away from the video game aspect of, since it's kind of sort of a level playing field of who will make the Super Bowl and not anyone has to worry about a Madden curse taking place.
Mm-hmm.
What will be the result? And I do think with how competitive one conference is this year compared to the other one, it's going to be an absolute dogfight. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, I mean, we're only what 4 months away or 3 months away from preseason games starting. So I mean, I know it's preseason football, but I mean, some of the best stuff.
Two,
yeah. Because like some of my favorite storylines for football all year are OTAs, beginning of the preseason, roster cuts, and surprising roster cuts, because that all leads right into fantasy drafts. And it's one of the most fun times of the year because you still have baseball going on. It's the heat of the playoff race at that point. Football's starting up, and it's fun times ahead.
I agree. You know what? I think you missed one, which is the annual overreaction to preseason. I can't wait for it.
Oh yeah, who's going to be winning the Super Bowl after they go undefeated in the preseason this year? Is it going to be the Cowboys?
It's going to be Dolphins probably. Every year, and people just try to convince me that preseason matters. Preseason does not matter. It matters to those who are trying to make a roster, but don't tell me you're basing your predictions for the regular season or preseason. You can go straight to hell with that. Don't talk to me about that.
And with that being said, I think that's here we go. One more.
So last week I was going to discuss this thing I'm going to bring up because we're both human beings. And, human beings that do a sports show or talk about wrestling or whatever, we have feelings about a lot of things. And I think it would be a not good thing for me to not bring up what happened last week. The school shooting that happened in Texas, Uvalde, Texas. And, I'm not going to say anything political, at least to me, because I don't see anything political about keeping children safe. I don't see anything political with keeping guns away from those who simply don't need an AR. They don't need it. And I don't think you got so many places that's selling it. And it infuriates me. It really, really does. And we can go to today. There was 4 shootings. It was 4 mass shootings today.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked one question to those that are in charge that's going to sit there and just
They're sitting there with their thumb up their ass at this point.
just sitting there and just thinking of any possible reason or why a crazed 18-year-old or any grown man, grown woman on this world should have an AR. Now, let me ask you a question. What is it going to take for one of you to get shot? To one of your kids to get shot? You tell me what is going to take.
That's the sad reality. That is the sad reality because, I mean, today, I think yesterday in Chicago, there were obviously not mass shootings, but I think there were 4 15-year-olds shot with ARs yesterday in Chicago alone. And like people can say, oh, Chicago has such strict gun control laws and Illinois does. But guess what? They don't have them in Indiana. They don't have them in Michigan. They don't have them in Wisconsin. The 3 bordering states, you could go get them like that. I don't know what needs to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen, but something has to happen at the end of the day. And it's just you just sit there sick to your stomach wondering when it's going to happen and what it's going to take. Because you would think after this past week that, that's not a partisan issue. You would think.
And here's the thing too. I don't know how do you regulate gun laws. There's always going to be around with it. There's going to be always something, always a loophole. But if y'all can figure out so many things in this damn country, you better figure out how to keep the kids safe. And I want this to come into play as soon as possible for when you have kids, when I have kids, and I don't have to worry about sending my kids to school because I don't think some nut is going to come in there and shoot my kid. I need these politicians to go sit themselves in the shoes of the families that are currently grieving. And even for those who are not grieving, even for that father who died of a broken heart because he was grieving so bad, I need those people to figure something out and figure something out fast. And this isn't politics. This isn't politics. This isn't left leaning. This isn't right leaning.
This is a people problem. This is a people problem.
And if you want to keep the people safe, you better make a ruling and make it fast. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing that up. So if you disagree with what was said right there, we do not wish you return and listen to us because
go to hell too.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say to you at that point. But if you made it this far, thank you very much again for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the show. Back up on Apple Podcasts as of now. So we will see you guys next week.